Right now, let's get perspective on the convention with Congressman, Colorado Republican Party Chair Ken Buck on our live line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start with law and order, which have been major themes during this convention. Polls show most Americans agree with, the idea of peaceful protests, but they don't agree with rioting and violent protests. So isn't this an issue where really the right and the left can agree? Why is it so divisive?
Well, I think one of the problems is the leaders on the left have not stood up and condemned Antifa and the radical protests. And, I read something in the paper the other day from one of the consultants on the left talking about the fact that if the left doesn't condemn this, they will pay a price in the election. And I agree with that. I think it is really a issue that is simmering below the surface, but it is concerning a lot of people.
Respectfully, Congressman, is it Antifa's fault that another African-American was shot by police, though?
No, it's not Antifa's fault at all, but you don't tear down statues. You don't burn a Wendy's. You don't have 48 days straight of...
Are you still with us?
You engage in... I am, yes. You engage in peaceful protests, and you don't engage in violence. It's just unacceptable.
Let's get your take on what went on last night with the NBA. The unrest in Kenosha and across the country has led to social activism from really everywhere. Businesses, now pro sports. Is the GOP paying enough attention to the racial injustice behind those protests, would you say?
I think absolutely. I think, Senator Scott was incredibly passionate and informative and about, his life, his family's life. He talked about his family legacy going from cotton to Congress. And I think it's clear that the Republicans care deeply about making sure that we close the racial divide in this country, but we do it in a peaceful and thoughtful way.
Well, and that kind of gets the whole thing with the protest piece of it, is because a lot of things that we hear from a lot of our listeners, well, they can protest, but we don't want to see them do it. And I don't think anybody agrees with the destruction. But at what point, Congressman, how much more louder, how many more knees have to be taken? How much more, if you want to say, pulling your hair out, do folks have to have before they really feel like they're being heard? I think you could argue that both parties haven't been good at this, but Democrats aren't in charge right now. If this is President Trump and this is a Republican conservative administration, isn't there a little bit of tone deafness with this issue?
No, I don't think so. I think when you look at what President Trump has done in terms of his prison reform bill, that was one of his initiatives that Congress, Republican House, Republican Senate passed, putting a lot of people from federal prison back into our communities, giving them the programs that they need. It was Joe Biden, who was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who passed the 94 Crime Control Act and stood by that Crime Control Act during his last campaign for president this time. And that's the very act that puts so many African Americans in prison. So I don't think there's a tone deafness at all. I think there's a leadership that this president has shown on the issue.
Also at the RNC, there's been a lot of talk about the coronavirus pandemic and the early response to it. What do you think is happening in Congress right now? We're all waiting for some kind of deal on COVID-19 relief. Where does it stand? What are the remaining sticking points?
Well, I know one of the sticking points is that Republicans in the House and Senate will not support a bailout of the failed California pension system, Illinois pension system, New York, New Jersey. And what Republicans are expecting is a clean reauthorization of the unemployment benefits. The president has done that by executive order. And we can argue about whether that's the right thing or not, but it was absolutely necessary in light of the ridiculous demands that were being made by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer.
As we let you go, Congressman, what do you anticipate hearing from the president tonight? And do you think the convention is connecting with Colorado voters, which, of course, I know is something you care about?
I do care about that, and I think the convention has done a really amazing job between Senator Scott. I thought Melania Trump, the First Lady, gave a great speech about her American dream as an immigrant, and I think it really gave some softness to the president. And I think that Dan Crenshaw's speech talking about heroism isn't just on the battlefield, but is something that we see in doctors and nurses and police officers. I think all of that really resonated, and I think the president will continue that theme. And I think he is going to talk about his accomplishments and how before the economy or before the pandemic, the economy was really booming, and it will be again with his leadership.
Congressman, Colorado Republican Party Chair Ken Buck, thanks for the time. Enjoy.